James. Get ready. Get ready, buddy. Okay, yeah, let's shut the door. Okay, are you ready? Okay, here we go. There you are. Can you say hello to everyone? Hello, world. It's me, James. What are you up to? No, if you're going to stay here, you're going to be good. What do you want to talk about? Yeah, you're on all the screens. Oh, he's being a baby. James is being a baby. What can we do for you? Are you going to go out now? Or are you going to sit and be good? We're here today with Mr. James. We hope everyone's having a great day. I think James is ready to go now. Okay, you're going to go? Okay.
No, this.
Well, James hasn't decided if he wants to be good or not. But that's okay. He doesn't have to be good if he doesn't want to. That's the benefit of being a baby. Are you going to sit and be good?
No.
Okay. Today, I asked all of you to send in lots and lots of questions. And one of those was on multi-tabling. So today, you have not only one Jonathan, but two. Actually, this is James. Can you say hello? Can you wave hello?
No.
You don't want to be there?
No.
Multi-tabling is an interesting concept because the idea of just playing more tables and making more money is incredibly alluring, right? You go from playing one table, let's say you make $10 an hour playing one table. Cards?
No.
You want a magic card? Here. Card. We may have to wait for James to chill out. Amy's down in the basement. She'll be back in just a minute. You're kind of ruining my show. I hear your mom. You want to go back to your mom?
No.
Okay. Go see her. There she goes. Go find mom. Come back later. See ya. Bye-bye. He's a special guest, but it's hard to talk about poker when he's around. Anyway. Today, let's talk about multi-tabling. It's a concept that is very important, especially if you are playing online, right? Live, it doesn't really matter so much, but online it is very, very important. So, first things first, what is multi-tabling? Well, multi-tabling is when you play more than one table at a time, right? It's very obvious that you would like to do this if you play cash games. Imagine you're playing one table of 1-2, and you make $20 an hour. Well, now you can play 2 tables and make $40 an hour. You can play 20 tables and make $400 an hour, right? Clearly that is very alluring, the idea that you can just play more tables and make more money. So that's why you would want to multi-table. The main question, though, is when and how many. First things first, as you play more tables, your edge will diminish, right? I experienced this personally when I used to play sit-and-goes. I went from playing 1 sit-and-go at a time, because that's what everyone did back in the day, to playing 2, to playing 4, to playing 16, and then up to 24. I found that with 16 tables, my return on investment would get roughly halved. So if I was winning at 10% ROI playing 4 tables, I could win at about 5% ROI playing 16 tables. And now you may think, is that worth it, right? Well, it's just a math problem, right? Let's say you normally make $10 a game playing 4 tables, so you make $40 an hour. Would you rather make $5 a game, but be able to play 4 times as many? So you go from $40 an hour to $80 an hour. So you don't 4 times your win rates, but you do double your win rate. It is a lot harder. It's a lot more mentally taxing. That's another concern a lot of people don't think about. It's way easier to sit there in 1 table all day than it is to play 16 tables. After 16 tabling for 8 hours, you're just done. Almost spilled coffee on me. We have a full cup of coffee today. Very rare instance. Today's a busy day. Have had no sips of coffee yet. So, edges diminish as you multi-table. That's fine if you start with a big edge. But what if you don't start with a big edge? What if you start with a small edge? Well, that's a bit of a problem, right? Say you started with a Like, for example, in the sit and goes, maybe the you actually don't lose half your edge. Maybe you actually lose X percentage, right? So let's say you normally had a 10% ROI, and 10% ROI goes down to a 5% ROI. It means you lose 5% ROI. Let's say you started with a 2% ROI. Well, 2% may not get halved to 1. It may go from 2 down to -3, which would be very, very bad, right? You go from a winning player to a losing player. So you have to be very careful when you are multi-tabling. And well, let's discuss when you should even consider multi-tabling. First things first, I definitely think you need to be playing, if you're playing online, you need to be playing at least 2 tables at a time, probably 4. And the reason for that is because think about most of the time at the poker table. It's spent sitting there doing literally nothing, right? You do essentially nothing. And if you're sitting there doing nothing because it goes raise, fold, 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 call, check, bet, fold, it's just a waste of your time, right? So the vast majority of the time when you're sitting there at the poker table, nothing is happening. And this is included online, even when the dealer shuffles immediately, even when it's fast, right? So, for that reason, you need to be playing at least more than 1 table. If you're playing exactly 1 table, you're probably wasting your time. This should be obvious, but if you're playing poker, you do not want to be watching TV. You don't want to be browsing Skype. You don't want to be browsing Facebook. That's obvious, right? If you're doing those things, you're not taking the game seriously. And it's okay to not take the game seriously, but understand all this advice is to people who are trying to win money. And everyone's not trying to win money. If edges diminish, that means leaks get magnified. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think you have to understand, if you're playing a very strong strategy, essentially you are sitting down and implementing that strategy to the best of your ability. But you lose the ability to implement your strategy well, right? So let's say they fold to you in the small blind and you know you're supposed to shove 12% of hands. It's obviously way more. Let's pretend like you're supposed to shove 12% of hands. But in this situation, you now shove 11.8% of hands or 12.2% of hands. It's not a big deal, but it's relevant, right? And things like that will cost you. And, I mean, very often if you're playing a somewhat robotic strategy, you can have lots of charts all around the room and you can consult them, right? And if you consult all the charts when you're playing, but you just don't when you're playing 16 tables, you're going to make mistakes, inevitably, right? It's like people who show me a hand and they folds to me on the button and I have King 4 suited with, actually, let's say they have King 9 suited with 11 big blinds, and they went all in and the big blind called with ace queen and they lost. Did they mess up? The answer is no. Obviously, you followed the push-fold chart easily, right? King 9 suited is an easy shove. You played perfectly fine, and that's that. So, anyway, if you are making obvious errors, that's not going to work out for you. But for the most part, when you play more tables, you will make errors that are on the cusp, right? You're not just going to start making gigantic blunders, but you will make a few more small mistakes here and there that cost you some tiny bit of ROI, and you're losing a tiny bit of ROI, right? That said, whenever you're playing a lot of tables, you will time out sometimes. You will misclick sometimes. In my opinion, and this is just my opinion, some people disagree, if you are playing tables to the point that you are timing out or misclicking, I think you're playing way too many tables. And probably not just a few too many, but like way too many. I know there was a time when I was 24 tabling, whenever I first got started with that, where I would just like misclick and I'd time out. And it's a disaster when you time out because then you have to go back and click, sit back in on all these tables. And that's a problem. So today, what do I suggest the vast majority of people? I suggest the vast majority of people play at most 6 tables. I'm not in the vast majority. I can play more because I have tons of experience. You may ask, how do I go from playing 1 to 2? Well, you practice. Very often you move down. I know whenever I first started playing more tables, I was already playing $200 sit and goes. And I would be one tabling, and then what I do is I would go down to the the $6 games. That was the smallest back in the day. So the $6 buy-in games, they had 50 cent, a dollar rate, that's what it was. And I went way back down, and I practiced playing 2 tables, and then 4 tables, and then as many as I could, right? And I'm not practicing like perfect strategy. I'm practicing getting the fundamentals down of moving the mouse. By the way, I have a trackball mouse. This is a different mouse than probably many of you are used to. I've used this since I was 19 or 20. I had horrible carpal tunnel syndrome in my right arm from presumably sitting on the desk. And this thing cured it completely, immediately cured it. I can use this better than a regular mouse by far. I can jump all around the screen in an instant. It's very, very sensitive. Like right now I have a huge monitor here. If I do this, boop, it's on the other side of it. Boop, it's on the other side of it. You guys can't see that, but I can. Anyway, so I've used this for forever. It's a Logitech trackball mouse M570. I heard they discontinued them, so I bought 20 of them just in case. Okay. You need to make sure you have good tools. That said, I can multi-table on a laptop no problem using the cascading method. And I think that that is fine. You have to understand that very often whenever you're playing mini tables, you're not going to be able to follow the action, right? You're instead going to rely on a heads-up display. Heavily. You're going to look at it, you're going to see specific numbers for specific spots, and then you're going to make your play based on what those numbers tell you. That causes a lot of uneasiness for a lot of players because they want to know what their opponents are doing. You are very rarely going to know what your opponents are doing. You're instead just trying to play a fundamentally sound strategy, or a strategy that exploits whatever the player pool does wrong, such that they can't do anything about you. Can someone not winning much by playing 200 tournaments... Can someone not winning much by playing 200 tournaments, assuming the max amount of tables he has played is... Moan, I'm not sure what you're asking. Anyway, whenever you start learning to multi-table, go back down to low stakes, play tiny, and practice, right? You need to practice. People always ask, like when you're playing live poker, how do you just know everyone's chip stacks across the table? You practice counting them, right? Go home, get a chip stack, set it up, and practice. Don't think you're going to be able to practice this when all the money is on the line, right? That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to practice in somewhat easy environments where you're starting on easy mode, right? And then eventually you're going to be able to where you're playing 16 $2,000 games. It's not even a problem. It's just normal because the act of multi-tabling becomes easy. I've tried to teach a few people to multi-table, and it seems like the older people often have a bit of a problem. I tried to teach one guy who was 70 years old, and he would be playing 2 tables, okay? And anytime he was all in on one table, he would not look away from that table until the action was complete. And then he'd go back to the other table. And that doesn't work. You need to forget about results when you're playing. The results will become irrelevant to some extent when you're playing. And often if you're playing 16 tables on a small monitor, you'll be cascading them, and you'll get it all in, and you won't even know what happens. You'll know if you lose. It'll tell you lost, but it doesn't really matter how you lost because you know you're going to go back and you're going to review every single game you played to make sure you didn't make any errors. That is part of this, is going back and constantly checking in on yourself. Do you think this is different for cash games or tournaments? Do you feel you can play more tournament tables than cash? I think it depends on what exactly you're playing. Tournaments, I think, are actually more difficult to multi-table in general, just because you're playing a lot of various stack sizes, right? Whenever you're playing cash games, you know you're roughly playing 100 big blinds. Whenever you're playing tournaments, you may have a 10 big blind stack, a 14 big blind stack, a 38 big blind stack, and it's all over the place. And that's very, very hard to play many, many tables at a time. Anyway, with tournaments, I would essentially tell you to cap yourself at about 6. I think you can play more cash games, personally. Often cash games don't require nearly as much, I'm not going to say creativity, because certainly they do. But you're playing just similar situations more often, I think. I could be wrong about this. Again, you're talking to someone who is happy to play 24 tables of tournaments, cash games, whatever. Zoom poker is very similar. You know, the speed poker where you can immediately fold and move to the next hand. Like 4 tables of that is a lot. I would not recommend 4 tables of that to many people. I don't know what the equivalent is. It's probably 16 tables. And it's fast, right? And so the question is, the good thing about the speed tables is you can actually control how fast you go because you can always sit out. You could always just take your time folding, etc., etc. Don't you feel like you just play your hand and not your opponent's when you play a lot of tables? No, you play your opponent's stats. Remember what I just said. You have a heads-up display, a robust heads-up display, not just 4 numbers. and you make your plays based on the information provided to you. You are playing specifically your players, right? You're starting with a fundamentally sound strategy, then you're adjusting to take advantage of whatever they do wrong. So you play 6 tables of 9 max, you're moving to 6 max, how many tables should you start with? 4? Start with 4, go from there. Six tables of 6 max is 2,500 hands. How does one decide which hands to review? Well, the easiest way is to filter for the hands that you play, right? Of the 2,500 hands, maybe you play 500. It takes, what, 2 hours to go through 500 hands? It's not very much. So you can play for 8 hours a day and then study for 2. Easy. Let's see. Mari, let's see what Mari's saying. You want to check the nuts sometimes in ICM situations. For example, final 3, you have 100 big blinds, somebody else has 60, another has 10. You want to keep them in with the nuts when, I mean, sure. This is illegal to prevent collusion. It's perfectly fine to, what you're essentially saying is you want to keep a 10 big blind stack around, and you're saying that you would not want to bust the player. Very often, this concept is taken overboard. Like, if you know you just have a stone 100% equity, it's very rare that you want to keep someone around. And in your instance, with 10 big blinds, you don't want to keep a 10 big blind stack around. You want to keep a 2 big blind stack around. You don't want to keep a 10 big blind stack. That said, it's certainly logical that you want to keep bubble situations around, and if you can abuse them, you should. And, you know, maybe you need to explain to the floor man, hey, this is what we're about to do. I'm not going to be betting in these scenarios because I want to keep this guy around. Can I explain what I mean by keeping your opponent's range wide as a key to maximizing value with marginal made hands? Well, think about this, right? Easy situation. Someone just sent me this hand. Someone raised pre-flop. I'm sorry, you raised pre-flop with ace 7 on the button. Big blind calls. Flop comes ace 9 2. Big blind leads into you. Okay. What's the big blind leading with? Stuff to say. We don't know, right? But it's probably a lot of stuff. So, if he's leading with a lot of stuff and you raise, he's going to fold out all the junk and he's going to call with all of his reasonable hands. How does ace 7 do against reasonable hands here? Well, not so well. I mean, it does fine, but it doesn't do amazingly well. Let's change it to say instead you had 10-9, right? In that scenario, 10-9 is a very obvious marginal made hand. If you raise, you're probably mostly getting called by better hands. So, would you rather keep the pot small and be against a wide range, or would you rather make the pot big and be against a strong range? Well, you'd obviously rather keep the pot small and be against a wide range that you have 60% equity against, instead of having 40% equity against a stronger range. So raising, making your opponent's range stronger, because they're going to fold sometimes, right? They fold the garbage. That forces them to essentially play well against you. Do you play Omaha? And what do you think about Omaha high-low? I think both of those are games. I know how to play both proficiently. All right. What laptop, desktop setup would I recommend? At this point, I don't think it actually matters that much for a desktop, because like most poker sites are not that in-depth. I mean, if you're trying to run the game theory optimal programs, then maybe you need a supercomputer. But besides that, you really don't need much. I mean, I have a laptop here that's streaming this, and presumably it's working. So, and then I have a big monitor here, just a random 30-inch monitor, a random Dell 30-inch monitor. I don't think it was even that expensive. It was $400 or something. Computer stuff is very cheap now. Back in the day, you could only play 1 table on each monitor for some reason, and therefore you had to have 4 monitors to play 4 tables. Think about that. And back then, a 20-inch monitor was $1,600. We were making some money from poker back then to justify this. All right. 2 tables of the speed games are great. Only 2 decisions simultaneously. Eliminates having a bunch of decisions at once. Yeah, I mean, sure. The problem is that with the speed tables, very often they play way bigger. Meaning the skill level of players is way better in the speed tables than it is at the other tables, because it's way more efficient, right? Like, I know if you play on the major sites, if you play their highest speed tables, I mean, it's like playing 25-50. It's tough, right? So, do you want to play against those players? What was my max amount of sit and goes? Well, Party Poker capped you at 16. Poker Stars capped you at 24. So 24. I did not do anything where I tried to play more. Didn't seem necessary. But like, this is not something to be proud of necessarily. This is something that is detrimental to your development as a poker player. I think a lot of people don't quite understand that when you play lots of tables, you are not getting better as a poker player. In fact, you may be getting a little bit worse because you're just purely playing a strategy. So, when should you start playing mini tables? And the answer to that is once you think you are no longer going to develop and improve your skills. Or the amount you're going to improve your skills is minimal. And once I was playing the highest stakes sit and goes and beating everyone, I'm probably not going to get a whole lot better, right? I'm going to have an edge, and that edge will diminish over time as the game gets tougher and tougher. That's what happens in all games. So I want now, my goals transitions from getting better and becoming the best player I can to instead playing as many hours at the table as I can. And very rarely is that the right answer for almost anyone, because unless you're already playing really high stakes, your goal should be not necessarily to win as much money as possible, but to become the best poker player that you can. Because that's going to allow you to play higher and higher and higher and higher, right? If you just get more money, having more money does not necessarily translate to being a better poker player. I think a lot of people get in their minds that if I have more money, I am a better poker player. Like, for example, you see this all the time where a player will win a 4,000 person, $1,000 buy-in tournament and get, I don't know, 100K or $1 million or whatever it is. Say they get $1 million dumped on them, and now all of a sudden they think they're good enough to play 10Ks. And that's just silly, right? Because just because you got lucky in a $1,000 tournament does not mean you are adequately prepared. So, same thing, just because you can grind out $20 an hour playing 25 cent, 50 cent, I don't know what the real win rate is, you're going to get a bankroll to be a 1-2 player, a 2-4 player, 5-10 players relatively fast. But that doesn't mean that you are good enough to be a player. So it's important to understand the skill level and dollars you have are not necessarily correlated. Often they are, but not necessarily. You aspire to be in the same games as me. Well, right now I'm changing diapers, so all I have to do is find a partner for that. Let's see. Good morning from Chicago. Hello. You've had issues with your Hold'em manager when you tried 2 tables. It kept rotating stats so they weren't lined up in the right seats. Okay, there's a setting in Hold'em manager. You have to go to the heads-up display, and there's something where you select the seat you want to be in. It's not a problem. This is easy. You need to go to the Hold'em manager forum, ask the question or search for the question, and you'll figure it out, no problem. A lot of these heads-up display programs are tricky. I understand that. That said, you need to figure it out. It's not that hard. Someone asked earlier, do I think they should ban heads-up displays? Probably. They're certainly bad for the bad players. In my opinion, anything that helps the bad players you typically want to do, as long as it is possible to still maintain an edge. So, it's very important. What's the easiest way to help the bad players? Think about it real quick. There are probably a few answers. Feel free to type them in. Everyone has their coffee. What's a good ROI? It depends on your games, right? Also depends on your risk tolerance. Would I recommend one $33 sit and go at a time or 4 $7? Definitely 4 $7. Definitely. What's my opinion on a range converter? I don't know what a range converter is. All right. Easy way to make the games better for bad players are to ban the good players. Easy. How do you ban the good players? Well, you could just straight up ban them. You could also implicitly ban them by making the rake very high or the structure is very poor. Some of the sites were trying that at the moment. Do I think it's a mistake to not use a HUD? Absolutely. What's a good one to start with? Hold'em manager. Go to jonathanlittlepoker.com/resources. There I have a lot of the resources that I use. What does GTO mean? Game Theory Optimal. Take back rewards. Oh wait, take back rewards is good for bad players. I don't know what a take back rewards is. Anyway, the way you help the bad players is to make the good players want to play less. That's a problem for good players though, right? And the question is, should poker be a beatable game? For some reason, poker players think that they are obligated or, what's the right word? Man, my brain's not working. Need more coffee. Have some coffee, Jonathan. They're entitled to have a good game. That's it, entitled. They're entitled to have a game that they can beat. And there you go. Kenny got it the second I said it. I don't think you're entitled to have a game that you can beat. But at the same time, I sure would like to have a game that I can beat. And making the games bad for good players does not accomplish that. You can do many things to make the games bad, though. You could have turbo tournaments. You could have short stacks across the board. You could have higher rake. You could have just straight up segregated games where you have good players and bad players. You can do a lot of stuff to make the games good for the bad players. And the question is, how far do you take it? Let's see. Louis Philippe says, came really close in the Sunday main event on Party. Made a big mistake. You 3-bet ace-queen suited. He jammed. You couldn't find the fold. I wouldn't fold either, probably. Nice run, though. What is ICM? The independent chip model. Do you think GTO is useful to learn? Listen, yes, you need to learn to play well. Whenever people say, is GTO good to learn? I think people don't understand what GTO means. A lot of people think it means super in-depth running of situations and solvers, and that's not necessary. Simplified GTO is what you need. That's what I teach at pokercoaching.com, because I know you can't memorize a perfect strategy chart for a bazillion situations, right? That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to teach strong fundamentals. Should you learn the fundamentals? That's what we're asking. Should you learn how to actually play well? And the answer to that is, obviously, you should learn to play well, right? A lot of sites in New Jersey don't allow third-party software. The problem with not allowing software, though, is that people obviously don't care about the rules. The bad actors don't care, the good actors do. So it rewards players who are bad actors. And now, you can't just say, anything's allowed, feel free, do whatever you want. But you can be really strict with trying to enforce it. But again, trying to enforce it. I'm definitely not saying you should do anything out of line, but I mean, like I know in Nevada, there was a guy who was streaming on Twitch who was playing on a site that banned heads-up displays, and he had a heads-up display up. How's that happening, right? Well, he had a workaround, but he was ignorant to the fact that he was... actually, I don't know what he was thinking. You clearly don't want to do anything with that while you're streaming. Anyway, gets banned, etc., etc. But obviously it's happening, and that's a problem, because that's really bad for the bad players, and it's also really bad for the good acting good players. So it's a problem. It's tough to ban stuff. It's really, really, really tough to ban stuff. What do I think of Raise Your Edge? I have watched a few Ben CB videos. He makes them for the Poker Backing site as well, and I think they're all very good. But I have not signed up to that site. Let's see. When playing live poker, does check the dark move accomplish anything? Well, often you know you are going to check in the dark. Say, if anything, it defines your range a bit. Say you defend big blind, flop comes, whatever. You know you're checking 100%. But no, it doesn't accomplish anything. It's silly. What should you be focusing on to take full advantage? Full advantage of what? Your opponents? I mean, pay attention to the things they do wrong. Pay attention to the things they do wrong. All right, let's see. What else do I have? So yeah, 6 tables max. I think that's smart for almost everyone. That's pretty much what I do at this point in my life. What's my thought on the Upswing Lab? I thought it was basic. But hey, nothing wrong with basic training program. All right. Oh, someone also said, if I am playing 4 tables of 1-2, and I lose, I go on a downswing, I'll then have to play fewer tables. And I completely disagree with this. Obviously, your edge may be diminishing beyond what you thought it would when you play more tables. But playing more tables doesn't necessarily mean you need a significantly larger bankroll, because all that happens is you experience the results faster. That means you will have bigger swings than you may typically encounter, but at the same time, the answer is not to play fewer tables. The answer is to move down. Right? Someone else asked here, is it better to play one $33 game or 4 $7 games? 4 $7 games is way better, assuming you're trying to become a sustaining professional that grows their bankroll over time. So, in situations like this, you have to realize that all you're doing is you're increasing volume, which decreases variance. Whenever you increase the number of hands you play, you decrease the amount of variance you experience, which means you're going to get more honest results. So, if you're going to be getting more honest results and you realize you're losing, well, maybe you're just not winning at the game. Or, maybe you're on a downswing. Of course, you will go on a downswing. Understand that when you do play 2,500 hands a day, as someone mentioned, that's a lot more hands than most people play. And they're going to see the big ups and the big downs that are inevitable in poker. I mean, when you play live poker, you play, 30 hands an hour? So you play 240 hands a day. So 1 day online is equal to, how many days live? Is equal to, 1 day online is equal to 10 days live. It's kind of crazy, right? If anyone's still here, let me know. Whenever you all stop chatting to me, it always freaks me out. All right, let's see. Imagine a site that segregates players by their ROI. Negative ROI? You're in the bronze league. Yeah, so the thing is they would obviously not tell you they're segregating the games. They would just do it. I know of a few sites that do this currently. And it's just what they do. If you're a bad player, you play the bronze league. I mean, they have you in the bronze league, but they don't let you know you're in the bronze league. Tim says, you've learned the most from my content. Good, thank you. I appreciate that. I do my best. All right, everyone's still here. Good. Anyway, whenever you're on a downswing, it doesn't mean play fewer tables, although it may because you may be playing poorly. But it does mean move down. A lot of people get in their minds, once they get up to 1-2, they're like, I'm a 1-2 player. I'm never moving down again. And that is not a good mindset. I made a video with Mike Sexton. You can find it on YouTube. Something to the effect of only watch once you've won $1 million. That essentially discusses that you must move down if you want to have any chance of succeeding. Mark says, Bronze League? What is that? Oh, Mark wants to be in the Bronze League. That's the league. We're saying if they were to separate the players based on their skill level, you would be either in the good league, the bad league, or the medium league. Let's just pretend. And if you're in the bad league, you never play with anyone in the good league. Now, of course, the site doesn't tell you what league you're in, but that's a good way of having them decrease the edge of the good players. That's what we were discussing earlier. How to decrease the edge of the good players. So yeah, you have to be willing to move down. If you move up, even correctly, right? Like say you do move up correctly, you're practicing good bankroll management, but then you go on a downswing, and then you lose, well, you need to move down. You do not need to sit there and think that I'm immune to downswings or whatever. That's going to happen, and you have to move down. Do you tip floor men, cashiers? Floor men sometimes, cashiers sometimes. Great video with Mike. Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Was I born in Manhattan? No, I was born in Pensacola, Florida. No more bum hunting. Sounds bad for guys who hunt for an edge. I think that is an interesting concept, right? Like, should you allow people to actively table select? I mean, if you look at live poker, I think they may have it figured out, where you go into the poker room, you put your name on the list for 5-10, and then there's one table that you get to play at. If there's 10 tables in the room, very often you get to go to one table. The must-move table. You go to the must-move table, you play at the must-move table for however long you play it there. Then when a seat opens to one of the other games, you get moved to one of those other games. And from there, you're allowed to move seats. That means you have to play at essentially a random table for a while. And then after that, you get moved to another random table. And then you get to move from there, if you feel like it. And that rewards you for starting a game. And it ensures the games always stay full, which is very, very beneficial, right? It means you're not playing shorthanded necessarily. So, I think it's not such a bad idea. Online poker is very, very different than that. For the most part, you just click a seat and you go there and you get to pick whichever seat you want. And that's really bad because if you have the scripts, which a lot of the sites ban, some do, some don't. But if you have a script, you can just sit down immediately when someone who has specific parameters sits at the table. Then you get to play with all the bad players all the time, and that's not really good, right? It's not a good experience for a bad player. Imagine you're a recreational guy, you put $5,000 online, you're ready to play, you sit down, and then immediately the table is full in an eighth of a second. With all players, you look up their stats, they're all big winners. Probably not a good setup, right? Let's see. Should we ever have a 4-bet polarized range against weak live players? Depends on their strategy, right? What's a good amount to tip after cashing in a tournament? In a tournament, they take a tip out immediately. Whenever you buy into almost all tournaments, they take 1.5%, give or take. How quickly do you ask for a table change live? I feel like whenever I get moved to a table that I'm allowed to move from, I always ask to be put on the table change list. And then you go from there. Joining poker coaching today. Is there a curriculum? Start at the oldest homework question and the oldest quiz and work your way forward. That would be the best way to go about it. Do I ever play World Series circuit events? I do not really. We've discussed this a bunch. Travel rake, the idea of this. It does not make sense for me to travel to play tournaments where I can invest less than 30K in a week, give or take. 30K is kind of the minimum. I want to be able to invest about 30K in a week to make it worth traveling. And the problem with a lot of the circuit events is they are $1,500 buy-in with re-entry, so maybe you get to play $3,500 worth, and it's just not worth it. It's nowhere near worth it. I have a blog on that. I think it's just jonathanlittlepoker.com/travel-rake. Approaching the money bubble, you've been in situations where you're above average chips, but 7 of 9 at the current table. What's the best way to adjust? Sit there and be a good boy or a good girl. Don't do anything insane. Collect your cash. Whenever you're at your table with lots of deep stacks, you don't need to do anything silly. All right, well, that's about all I have to say about multi-tabling. I suppose the short answer is play between 2 and 6 tables. Realize that playing more tables is not the goal. A lot of people, for a long time, myself included, thought the goal was to collect rakeback. Because back then, you would get $20,000 a month from rakeback. I mean, when I played on Party Poker a long time ago, I would play $3,200 buy-in sit and goes a month. That resulted in me paying $45,000 in rake each month. Pretty good amount of rake, right? And I would get 30% rake back, which was, call it 15K. And then also, you would win from the games, 10 or 15K from the games. So let's say you win 15K from the games, you get 15K in rake back, it's 30K a month. Problem though, is eventually the sites realize they don't need to be paying that rake back. And inevitably they stopped paying that rake back. Oh, I just realized I'm missing all the Facebook comments. Why is it not doing that? Let's see. Gotta use a heads up display, yep. How do I feel about people awarding the deuce to 7 bluff? Sure, great for the game. Louis Philippe says poker coaching is your best investment so far. Good, I'm glad to hear that. Any strategy I've used to stay motivated even when there are days I don't really want to play. Realize you don't have to play. Just because the game exists doesn't mean you have to play. Ask yourself why you're playing, what are you playing for, what would you rather be doing, and that may lead you to figure out what you want to be doing in life. Poker is a great thing to do, and a great way to have fun, but it may not be the best way to live your whole life. Barry Greenstein wrote something in this book. Let me see if I can find it. I'm going to read this, if I can find it. I always thought this was a good thing. It says, when all is said and done, if I spent most of my time sitting at a poker table, I would feel that I was a loser in the game of life. Very, very accurate. And you're not always going to want to play poker, and when you don't feel like playing poker, or don't feel like doing anything, you should probably not do that, right? Especially if you have options. I mean, if you are a poker player, presumably you have some options. Maybe you're even playing for fun. But I get the idea that say you know on average you're going to make $3,000 a month if you play every single day, and you know you need to make $3,000 a month to live. Well, you're not in a good situation. You need to instead figure out how to cut your expenses. And that's the first thing. Then say imagine you need to now only make $2K a month. Well, now you get to take 5 off days a month if you feel like it, which is very valuable. Is poker coaching okay for live cash too? It is. There's another site, Crush Live Poker, you should also check out though. They have a lot of good stuff too. All right, let's see. Eric wants to send me in a hand. Let's see. You're playing 2-5. You had a guy with a parrot service animal at the table. Sure, why not? Eric, I don't really know what you're saying. I guess you have sixes. Call to raise, jack 7-3. 5 in hand. All right, turns a 6. Drunk guy bets 5. You raise 15. He puts in 100. What should you do? Don't fold. Don't fold the nuts. Do not fold the nuts or the effective nuts. It's a big mistake. There are also some more quotes on that page. I just want to see what else Barry Greenstein says. Let's see. He also says, your goal in life should not be to make money, but making money may help you achieve those goals. Wow, I mean, like, I didn't even know what this says. This is good. I'm going to read again. Your goal in life should not be to make money, but making money may help you achieve your goals. There's one more. Where you spend your time is not nearly as important as what you do when you are there. Good advice from Barry Greenstein. I wish I could make this stuff up myself. I'd have a much better book. But I remembered this one. When all is said and done, if I spent most of my time sitting at a poker table, I would feel that I was a loser in the game of life. So keep that in mind. Obviously, playing poker is fun. It is great, but make sure you do something with your life. This is a good book. I don't know if it's overrated or underrated. I always think it's so cute. Look what he did here. He put a $25 chip in the corner. It's only a $25 chip to get this sweet book. It's full of pictures. It's fun. Ace on the River. So, the idea of staying motivated is very important. I know Elliot Rowe, who I've worked with on Excelling at No Limit Hold'em, he discusses motivation a lot, and that actually is an issue for a lot of online grinders because it is tough. I mean, I know I sit here and I'll write a book like all day, every day for a month, and I'll get a little bit burnt out. I mean, it's easy for me because I realize I'm working for all of you, right? You all employ me, and it's not as if I'm just trying to beat all of you, right? It's very different. I'm trying to help all of you. And that's one of the reasons I got into poker coaching as opposed to just playing all the time, because I like helping people, right? And I would suggest that if you find that you are tired of trying to beat everyone and tired of being worried about losing your bankroll at every step, try to figure out ways to help people. Try to figure out ways to benefit the world. And I think that's good advice. So that's me for today. Hope you all have a great day. Tomorrow we'll be back with another topic. Add this to the pile. What are we going to discuss tomorrow? Let's see. This is actually way easier for me to look this up because I have a computer in front of me now with this new setup. What are our options? Tournament structures. Maybe. Here's a question about HUDs and picking your site. I don't really want to talk about that. We kind of did that today. Volume before you can assess. I don't know. I'll find a topic. You all sent me in like 100 topics, so I have plenty of topics to get to. We'll find something for tomorrow. A few people asked me to figure it out a day ahead of time, but that's not how I operate. Again, going back to being happy, you know what I do? The way I figure out my little coffee topic for each day? I sit down here at about 8:35, and I go through my topics. I find one that I want to talk about, and then we talk about it. Right? And that's it. Because I don't necessarily want to think ahead about this, because I may not want to talk about it by the time the day comes around, or I may not have many thoughts about it on that day, but I may on a different day when I'm feeling it, right? I think it's very important to try to structure your life so that you're really wanting to do what you do on a daily basis. If you can do that, that's going to be very, very beneficial for you, I think, as opposed to getting in some sort of a grind where you do the same thing all day, every day. 21 million Bitcoin says it right. Hit that like button. I'm very bad at promotion like this. I think I'm supposed to give shout outs to everyone and hit the like button and click the subscribe and whatever. That would be very beneficial. I'm sure there is a button on all of your devices to share this, to retweet this. I don't know the right words. I'm an old man. Look, we're not young kids here. I don't know how to use this computer. This newfangled computer device. Do I know anything about various poker sites? No. Don't play on unregulated sites unless you're happy losing your money. Back in the day, what was I grinding online? $200 to $2,000 buy-in sit-and-goes. What was the most amount of all-in hands you had dealt concurrently? Probably all of them, 16. I don't really know. I don't keep track of stuff like that. There were certainly times I remember where I would be all in on like 14 tables. I remember one time I busted like 12 out of 16. I remember this vividly. I was a young, dumb kid. I just got to Vegas. It was our first, second, or third day at a house. I was staying with 10 other guys in a small house. That was a mistake. It was a lot of fun, though. And I had a mouse, rather like this, and I was on a glass table playing 16 tables. I lost 12 of them in the first, 4 minutes. I took the mouse, banged it on the table shattered all around me. So now I'm sitting in a pool of glass. I have my laptop balanced on the frame of the table. I sit there, I do my best to remain calm, despite being an idiot, and then I won the last 4, so I broke even on the session. I mean, I had to pay for the table, so I guess I didn't really break even for the session, but that was dumb. Do not do acts of violence. You see people on TV throwing their glass on the wall and punching the wall and breaking tables. That's just so stupid. Don't be stupid. I feel like everyone, maybe not everyone, but many people who are competitive and want to win, they go through phases where they do dumb things. Just came back from Eden, says you always have a choice. You do. You always have a choice as to whether or not you break the table. And your reactions are really completely under your control, especially if you practice being wise, right? Practice being wise. Don't be an idiot. So that's going to be it. Have a great day. Enjoy yourselves. Be nice to someone. Be nice to someone. Be nice to yourself as well. Don't be a fish like I used to be. Maybe I still am a fish. It's tough to say. That's the thing. Whenever you look back at yourself in the past, I think you always think that you're way dumber. And with any luck, I'm not going to think I'm so dumb today, but who knows? Maybe I will. All right, have a great day. You live on Nebraska and can only play on unregulated sites. What would I suggest? I don't think it matters that much. Figure out whatever one has games for you. Poker clubs rake in the form of seat rentals. Sure. They got to get money somehow. All right, have a good day.